Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in the fun. Today's tutorial is a quick one. We're making a collared vest. Simple and modern, my favorite way to crochet. Speaking of, no matter which way you like to crochet, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of easy to follow crochet tutorials and patterns with even more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 170 grams of yarn. That's 380 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us how many stitches you think you've crocheted in your lifetime. I have no idea, but it's gotta be in the millions, I'm pretty sure. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small. You can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5mm hook and start off by making an even number chain that starts 1 inch underneath our underarm down to your waist. So I'm going to start by making a chain that is 6 inches or 15 centimeters, and that's a chain 22 for me. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then we're going to do a single crochet row. Starting with that chain that we blocked off, the second chain from our hook, we're going to bring our hook down into that chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. That is our first single crochet. Once more into that next chain, insert, pull through 2, and continue with 1 single crochet into every chain. We are back and our row 1 is complete. Now let's get started on our row 2. So for this pattern, it is going to be a 3-row repeat. It's going to be a single crochet row, then a moss, and then a second moss stitch row. So getting started on any moss stitch row, we are always going to start with a chain 2. That first chain is going to count as a turning chain. That second chain is going to count as a chain, and flip our work. Then what we're going to do is skip that first stitch and single crochet into the next. So here's 1, into that second, insert with a single. That should form our first chain space for this row. So far we should have 1, 2 stitches. Again, we're going to chain 1, skip a stitch into the next, insert with a single crochet. Now we should have a total of 4 stitches for this row. That first is that chain space, single crochet, chain space, single crochet. From here, continue to chain 1, skip a stitch, and single crochet into the next until we reach the end of the row. We've just made our way down with our row 2. Now, like I said, the third row in our 3-row repeat is going to be another moss stitch row. So like I said, getting started on any moss stitch row, start with a chain 2. First chain counts as our turning chain. Second chain counts as a chain, and flip our work. And again, we're going to skip that first stitch and single crochet into the next. So we're going to skip that first stitch, which should be a single crochet from our previous row, and into our next stitch, which should be our chain space. We're just going to insert our hook into that entire chain space with a single crochet. Now that should give us our first 2 stitches for the row, which is our chain space and single crochet. And from here, continue to chain 1, skip a stitch, and single crochet into the next, which it should be our chain space again until you reach the end of the row. So we are back and our first 3 rows are complete. Now this is going to be our underarm portion, so all we're going to do is continue to repeat these 3 previous rows with no increases and no decreases. So we should all still have the same amount of stitches as chains that we made until we have a portion that can reach from mid underarm over to the corner of our underarm. Then I'll meet you guys back right after our second moss stitch row. So I'm back and my underarm portion is complete. Now I have a total of 6 rows. This width is roughly about 1.5 inches or 3 centimeters. Now we can get started on the increase portion that leads up to the shoulder. So since we all should have ended right after our second moss stitch row, we're going to chain 1, flip our work. Put 1 single crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one, and then I'll meet you back. We are back. We have single crocheted all the way down, leaving that last stitch. Now that last stitch should be a chain space for everyone. If it's hard to see, go ahead and pull that apart, but that stitch will be there. And we're all going to do an increase. And the increase that we're going to be doing for this piece is going to be a single, half double, and double crochet. So into that last stitch, start with 1 single crochet. Into that same last stitch with a half double, and into that same last stitch with a double crochet. Now we're doing increases like this instead of just an increase of 3 single crochets so that our single crochets don't start to curve. And also for every increase row for this portion, we should have 2 more stitches than our previous row. Now the following row in our row sequence is going to be a moss stitch row. So whenever we're along the top getting started on our moss stitch row, how we're going to do that increase is start with a chain 2. That chain 1 counts as our turning chain, second chain counts as a chain, and flip our work. Now to make sure that we're all ending the row with a single crochet, we're going to skip that first stitch. Then into that next stitch, we're going to do an increase of 3 single crochets. So like I said, skip 1, into that next, insert with 1, same stitch with a second, same stitch with a third. Now so far we should all have 4 stitches for this row, making sure that we are still counting that first chain space. Maybe a little bit hard to see, but it is there. Then from here we're going to do our moss stitch per usual. So chain 1, skip a stitch, into the next, insert with a single crochet, again, chain 1, skip a stitch, insert with a single crochet. Continue this to reach the end of the row. Our second increase row is complete. Now let's get started on our third, and that's going to be another moss stitch row. So since we're along the bottom, we're going to chain 2, flip our work. Skip that first stitch, single crochet into the next, which should be our chain space, so the same way that we've been doing this entire time, all the way down until we have 2 stitches left, remembering that that last stitch will be that chain space. We are back and we are nearly complete with our third increase row. Now at the end of our second moss stitch row, we should all have 1, 2 stitches left, remembering that that last stitch is a chain 1 space, and all we're going to do is chain 1, skip that next stitch, then into that last stitch, which is that chain space, insert with a single, half double, and double crochet. Now from here it is going to be a 3-row repeat, but since our repeat is an odd number of rows, sometimes our rows are going to start along the top or the bottom. So as an example, our single crochet row started along the bottom, so we ended that single crochet row with an increase. But since our following row is a single crochet row, but we're starting along the top, I'll show you guys how to get started with that row as well. So start with a chain 2 and flip your work. Now getting started with our single crochet row that starts along the top, we're going to do the same increase but in reverse. So it's going to be a double crochet, half double, single, because we want the double crochet, which is the taller stitch, to be along the outer edge. So yarn over into that first stitch with a double crochet, same first stitch with a half double crochet, same first stitch with a single crochet. Then from here, put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Our fourth increase row is complete. Now we're going to do our next moss stitch row, so chain 2, flip our work. Skip the first stitch, single crochet into the next, making our way all the way down, leaving the last 2 stitches, and then I'll meet you back. We've made our way down with our moss stitch row, leaving the last 2 stitches. Now to do this increase, we're going to chain 1, skip that following stitch, into that next stitch, which should be the last, insert with a single, half double, double crochet, and now our 5th increase row is complete. Now just to do our following one, which is our 6th row, we're going to chain 2, because we're getting started with a moss stitch row, flip our work, skip that first stitch, then into the next, insert with 3 single crochets. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. Then from here, since we should have 4 stitches so far, we're going to chain 1, skip a stitch, and into that next stitch, which should be a chain space, with a single crochet, and continue to do our moss stitch row, making our way all the way down. Alright, so we are back. Our first 6 increase rows for our shoulder are complete. From here, it is going to be a repeat of our 6 previous rows until we have a portion that can reach from 1 inch underneath the underarm all the way up to the top of our shoulder. Then I will meet you guys back right after our second moss stitch row that ends along the bottom. And then I will meet you guys back so we can then get started on the neckline together. We are back and our shoulder portion is complete. Now I have a total of 24 rows. My width is roughly 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. Now we're going to get started on our neckline decrease. So first things first, for every size, no matter what size we're making, we're going to get started on our following row, which is our single crochet row. We're going to single crochet all the way up. We're going to want to insert our stitch marker into the 10th stitch from the top. Then I'll meet you back when we have 3 stitches left right before our stitch marker. We've just made our way all the way up with our single crochet row, leaving 3 stitches right before our stitch marker. Now from here, we're all going to do a decrease of 3 half double crochets. So yarn over, into that third to last stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, and last stitch, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 5. Now from here, we're going to get started on our following row in our row sequence, which is our moss stitch row. So we're going to chain 2. That first chain is going to count as our turning chain. Second chain is going to count as a chain and flip our work. And we're now going to have to do a decrease. So what we're going to do is skip that first stitch, then into the 3 following stitches, a decrease of 3 single crochets. So skip that first stitch, into that next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through for 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through 4. Now so far for this row, we should all have 2 stitches. That first should be that chain space, might be a little small, but I promise you it is there, and then the top of the decrease. Then from here, we're going to complete our moss stitch per usual. So chain 1, skip 1 stitch, into the next with a single to reach the end of the row. So we are back and the first 2 decrease rows of our neckline are complete. Now what we're going to do from here is still continue to decrease along the top of our piece, which the decreases will be done the same way, but after every 2 rows, we're going to then insert our stitch marker into the 4th stitch from the top. That is the same for everyone, no matter what size we're making, because we want this to be a pretty steep decrease. So since we all ended along the bottom, insert your stitch marker into the 4th stitch from the top. Then we're all going to do our following row in our row sequence, which is our second moss stitch row, because it is still a 3-row repeat. So from where we're at, chain 2. That first chain is going to count as a turning chain. Second chain is going to count as a chain, and we're going to make our way all the way up until we have 4 stitches left right before our stitch marker. So we've made our way all the way up with our moss stitch row, leaving 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches right before our stitch marker. Now what we're all going to do from here is chain 1, then do a decrease of 3 half double crochets. So yarn over, we are going to skip that following stitch, then into that next, which should be a chain space, we're going to insert pull through, next stitch, pull through, and last stitch, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 5 loops. Now when this row is completed, we're all going to chain 2, because our following row is a single crochet row, and we're going to need to start the following row off with a decrease and flip our work. And this is just going to be a decrease of 3 half doubles, so yarn over, into that first stitch, pull through, next stitch, which should be our chain space, pull through, next stitch, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 5, and continue with 1 single crochet into the rest of our stitches. So we are back and our first 4 rows for our neckline decrease are complete. Now what we're all going to do from here is just continue to repeat these types of rows until we have a portion that can reach all the way over to mid-chest. Now each of the 4 rows that we just did together was an example of how each row is going to be done. So after every 2 rows, we're going to insert our stitch marker into the 4th stitch from the top. We're just going to do the following row in our row sequence with a decrease along the top, a following decrease row, and then repeat. The link for each of these rows will be in the description, and we're just going to continue to repeat these rows until we have a portion that can reach mid-chest. Then I'll meet you guys back right after our first moss stitch row that ends along the bottom. Then we can all do our middle row together. We are back and I have just completed my neckline decrease. Now I have a total of 33 rows. My width is now roughly 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters. Now we're all going to do our middle row. And it is going to be a single crochet row for everyone, no matter what size we're making. So since we all should have ended along the bottom, chain 1, flip our work, put 1 single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way up. And then once we have that single crochet row, I will meet you guys back. Okay, so we are back. Our middle single crochet row is complete. Now from here, we're going to mirror everything that we did on this side on this side. So from here, my next row is going to be a moss stitch row that starts along the top. So remember how we start that row is chain 2 and flip. So now that we have flipped our work, we're going to start this row off with an increase. Now this row is going to be a moss stitch row because the first row on the other side of my middle row was also a moss stitch row. So since we're along the top, we're going to skip that first stitch. Into that next stitch, an increase of 3 single crochets. Then from here, we're going to continue on with our moss stitch to reach the end of the row. So chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end of the row. Now our first increase row is complete. Now taking a look at the other side of my middle row, which by the way I am going to be sticking a stitch marker into the top of that single crochet row. So taking a look at the following row that I have, this is my middle single crochet row. The row that we just did was a moss stitch row. Now my following row is going to be a single crochet row because mine was a single crochet row right here. Chain 1, flip my work. Put 1 single crochet into every stitch, and at the end of the row I am going to do my increase. Remember, the increases are going to be done the same way as the shoulder increase. So at the end of that row, a single half double double, and then I'll meet you back. Now our first 2 increase rows are complete. Now on this side, since we skipped 4 stitches, we're going to chain 4 and then get started on the following row. So after every 2 increase rows, we're going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, then do the following row in a row sequence. Now my following row is a moss stitch row, so I'm going to block off that last chain and start with a chain 2. That first chain for me is a turning chain, second chain counts as a chain, and flip our work. Now since we're now doing a moss stitch row that starts along the top, we're going to single crochet into the 4th stitch from our hook. So there's 1, there's 2, 3 is the chain that we blocked off, and 4. Into that chain that we blocked off, we're going to do an increase of 3 single crochets. So into that chain, insert with 1, same chain with a second and third. Then once we have our increase, remembering that that chain space counts as our first stitch, so far we should all have a total of 4 stitches for this row. We're going to chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next to reach the end of the row. So we are back. I've made my way all the way down with this first row that started with a chain 4, and now my following row is going to be a moss stitch row. So that's going to be per usual. We're going to chain 2, flip our work, skip that first stitch, single crochet into the next, and just continue to do that moss stitch row all the way down, remembering that we're going to close off the row with an increase, so single, half double, double, all into that last stitch. Alright, so we are back. We have just completed our 2 increase rows. Now from here, we're going to chain 4 again, because we always have a chain 4 here, and then get started on the following increase rows. So from here, it's going to be a repeat of our 3 rows. So single, 2 moss stitch rows, making sure that we're increasing along the top. And after every 2 increase rows, we're all going to chain 4, then get started on the following row. We're going to continue this until we have the same amount of rows as the front panel. And then I'll meet you guys back so we can make our chain 10 and then work our way down our shoulder together. We are back. All of my increase rows for my neckline are complete. I have a total of 43 rows now. My width is just about 9 inches or 23 centimeters. And after that last increase row, we are all going to make a chain 10 because remember we skipped a total of 10 stitches when we got started on our decreases. Now from here, we're all going to get started on the following row to work our way down from our shoulder. And the following row is going to be the same for everyone. So once we have our chain 10, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. That first chain counts as our turning chain. Second chain counts as a chain. Then we're going to do a decrease of 3 single crochets, starting with the 4th chain from our hook. So here's 1, here's 2, 3 is the one that we blocked off, and 4, insert your hook into that 4th chain, pull through, next chain, pull through, and next chain, pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4. Remembering that we have a total of 2 stitches for this row so far because that first stitch is our chain space, second is the top of that decrease. Then from here, chain 1, skip a stitch into the next with a single crochet and continue on with our moss stitch to reach the end of the row. So our first shoulder row is complete. Now everyone's following row should be a moss stitch row. So since we're all along the bottom, chain 2, first chain counts as a turning chain, second chain counts as a chain, then do our moss stitch all the way up, leaving the last 4 stitches. We've made our way down, leaving the last 4 stitches. Now what we're going to do is chain 1, Skip one stitch and a decrease of 3 half double crochets into the last 3 stitches. So yarn over, skip that next stitch, insert your hook into the next, which should be a chain space, pull through into that next stitch, which is the top of that decrease, pull through and into that next stitch, which is our chain space, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Yarn over and pull through all 5. And our following row is a single crochet row, so chain 2 and flip. Start with a decrease of 3 half double crochets, so yarn over, into that first stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 5, and this should be a single crochet row for everyone, so put 1 single crochet into every stitch. We are back and our first 3 decrease rows for our shoulder portion are complete. From here, we're going to continue to do our 3-row repeat until we have the same amount of shoulder rows that we have on this side. Then once we do, I'll meet you guys back to finish up with our underarm together. So we are back. The shoulder decrease portion is complete. Now we're going to finish this off with our underarm, and the underarm is going to be done the same way as we started. So it's going to be 2 moss stitch rows and a single crochet row with no increases and no decreases for the same amount of rows that we have on this side. Once we do a chain up 1 and cut, and then I will meet you guys back so we can seam everything together. Alright, so we are back. We have just completed the entirety of our front panel. Now my total width is roughly 4.5 inches or 37 centimeters. Now what we're going to do from here is our back panel, but the back panel is going to be done pretty much the same exact way as the front panel, but without any of the decreases and increases. Mine is already completed, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. So getting started on our back panel, we're all going to start by making a chain for the same amount of chains that we did for the front panel's underarm with the same first underarm rows that we have. Then we're going to do the same shoulder portion, so the same increase that reaches all the way up to the shoulders. Once we have that last shoulder row, we're going to continue to do our single and 2 moss stitch rows with no increases and no decreases for the same amount of rows that we have from our first neckline row all the way across to our last neckline row. But as a really quick tip, since we did a single crochet row for the middle row, and then we mirrored everything that we did on this side, we're going to do the same thing for the back panel because we want everything to line up for the shoulder and the underarm portion. So once we reach the middle row, make sure we're doing 1 single crochet row, then mirroring all the same rows that we have on this side. Then do the same shoulder portion and underarm portion as the front panel. Once we have that completed, do a chain up 1 and cut, and I'll meet you back to seam everything together. So we're back. Both of our front and back panel are completed. Now we're going to seam up the sides. So first things first, we're going to place our front panel on top of our back panel, then insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and back panel, and we're going to do a single crochet seam. So during our single crochet seam, we're going to pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then we're going to start by finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert your hook, first stitch into the back panel, insert your hook, and single crochet around everything. Once more, next stitch into the front, next stitch into the back, and single crochet, and we're just going to continue doing this till we don't have any more stitches left. When we don't, do a chain up 1 and cut, and repeat on the other side. So we have just completed seaming up our sides. Now we're going to seam our shoulder. So this is going to be fairly simple since we all should have just 1 shoulder row, which was just a last shoulder row that we did, so the highest point. We're just going to make sure the work is still flipped wrong side out, meaning the seams that we just did for the sides are along the outside still. Then insert our hook into that top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Insert your yarn onto your hook. We're just going to pull all the way through, tie a really secure knot, and then repeat on the other side. So we are back. Everything is all seamed up. Now we're going to get started with our bottom band. So first things first, we're all going to make sure the work is flipped right side out, meaning all of our seams are now along the inside. Then we're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows along the bottom of our piece. Then what we're going to do is just put 1 single crochet into every side moss stitch row, but skipping over our single crochet rows. So we're all going to do a chain up of 1, which I have already done, and we're going to find our first side row. My first side row is this side single crochet row. Now, I'm not going to work into there, so I'm going to find my following side row, which is this side moss stitch row right here, which is this gap. So find that top loop and insert with 1. Into my next side moss stitch row, find that top loop and insert with 1 again. Skip over our side single crochet row, single crochet into that next moss, and single crochet into that following moss. We're just going to continue doing this, making our way all the way around. As a really quick tip, our single crochet row is going to be as wide as this portion can stretch, so once when it's completed, try your piece on. If it's a little bit too loose, reduce some stitches with a tighter grip, or if it's too tight, reduce some stitches with a looser grip. Then I'll meet you back. We are back and our single crochet row along the bottom of our piece is completed. Now we're going to do our herringbone stitch rows. So from where we're at, right after we've slip stitched into that chain space, we're all going to chain 2. So what we're all going to do from here is yarn over. Insert our hook into that first available stitch, yarn over, pull through for 3 loops on our hook. We're going to pull our first loop underneath our second loop. So just hook that on, pull it underneath the second for 2 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through 1 for still 2 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through 2. That is our first herringbone double crochet stitch. Let's do that again. Yarn over. Into that following stitch, we're going to insert, pull through. Pull that first loop underneath our second, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. And that's it. Let's just do one more. Yarn over. Into that next stitch, pull through, pull the first loop underneath our second, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, and just continue doing this, making our way all the way around. When we have made our way all the way around, slip stitch into that second chain that we made, and then I will meet you guys back. So we've just made our way all the way around with our first herringbone stitch row. We have slip stitched into that second chain that we made. Now we're going to do a following herringbone stitch row. So right after our slip stitch, we're going to chain 2 and flip our work. We want to make sure that we're flipping our work, and we're going to do the same herringbone stitch row, making our way all the way around. Then I'll meet you back. We are back, and our 2 herringbone stitch rows for the bottom band are complete. Now from here, we're going to make a chain the length that we'd like for the actual bottom band to be, which is just going to be the ribbing. I'd like for mine to be just about 1.5 inches or 3 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain 8. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Now that chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch. That's our turning chain, and into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch. So bring your hook down, into that chain, yarn over, and gently pull through both loops on our hook. Again, into that next chain, insert, yarn over, gently pull through everything, and continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain, remembering not to tug too tightly after every stitch, otherwise the flying row will be too tight to work into. Now that we've put 1 slip stitch into every chain, we're now going to connect it into the base. So into that next available stitch into the base, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the flying row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, still doesn't count as a stitch, and flip our work. Now put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So finding that first stitch's back loop, not working into any of those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert in through that back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us, then yarn over and gently pull through everything. Again, next stitch's back loop, yarn over, gently pull through everything. From here, continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end of our row 3. We're back and our first 3 rows are completed. Now we're going to connect it into the base just once more. So into that next available stitch into the base, simply insert with a slip stitch. Remember that slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then we need to work our way up to the following row, so slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. From here, continue to repeat those 2 previous rows with no increases and no decreases, making our way all the way around. When you don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back to seam it all together. So we are back. We have just made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're just going to seam it together using an outside loop slip stitch seam. So first, making sure that our work is flipped right side up, we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through everything on our hook. Then start by finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert only into that front loop. First stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop. Then yarn over and pull through everything on our hook. Again, next stitch into the front panel, insert only into that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop. Then yarn over and pull through everything on our hook, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up a 1 and cut. So we're back. Now that we have just completed our bottom band, we're now going to get started on our collar. So first things first, we're all going to make sure that our work is flipped right side up. Then we're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the neckline within the back panel. Then just working our way across our back panel, simply put 1 single crochet into every side row that we have. Then I'll meet you back once we're worked into this corner stitch so we can work down into our front panel. So we are back. We've just made our way across our back panel. Now we're going to work our way down the front panel. We're going to put 2 single crochets into every side row and 1 single crochet into every stitch. So working our way down our front panel first, we should have 10 stitches for everyone. So finding that first stitch, insert with 1 single crochet. Into that next with a second, and continue with 1 single crochet into every stitch. Now we should all have a total of 10. Now that we all have our 10 single crochets, we should have 2 side rows. We're going to be putting 2 single crochets into each of those. So this is my first side row right here. I'm going to find that top loop and start with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, there's 2. This is my following side row, so I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 2 again. So there's 1, same top loop with a second. Then right after those 2 side rows, we should have a total of 4 stitches to do. So put 1 single crochet into every stitch until we reach our following side row. You just put 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. We're now at our following side row. So again, 2 single crochets into each of those side rows. So there's 1, there's 2 into that following side row, insert with 2 single crochets again, and that's pretty much it. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way down. Once we reach our middle row, put 1 single crochet into there and make sure we're inserting our stitch marker into there. Then make our way up with 1 single crochet into every stitch, 2 single crochet into every side row, making our way all the way up. Then once we don't have any more stitches left to work into, slip stitch into that chain space and I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just completed our single crochet row along the entirety of our neckline. Now we're going to get started on our collar. So first things first, we're going to want to try on our piece and insert our stitch markers into the stitch where we'd like for the collar to start and end. So for those of you that have my numbers, counting from my middle stitch marker stitch, not counting the actual stitch, I inserted my stitch marker into the 22nd stitch from that stitch. Then from here, we're going to insert our hook into one of our stitch marker stitches and start by making chain the length that we'd like for the collar to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making chain 10. So we are back, and once we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then from here, we're going to yarn over, preparing for a half double, and into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, insert with 1 half double crochet. Then from here, put 1 half double crochet into every chain. So we are back, and we've just put 1 half double crochet into every chain. Now from here, we're going to slip stitch it into the base, working towards the back. So finding that next available stitch, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Remember that that slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next available stitch, flip our work, and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. So yarn over, finding the last stitch from our previous row, not into those stitches worked into the base, we're going to insert with a half double crochet, and we're all going to put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch again, and I'll meet you back at the end of our row 3. We are back, and we have our first 3 collar rows completed. Now we're going to connect it into the base. Now connecting it in the base is going to be the same as our previous row, and basically the same way that we connected into the base for the bottom band. So just finding that next available stitch, insert with a slip stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch again. We're just going to continue to repeat those 2 rows with no increases and no decreases, making our way all the way around until we're worked into our following stitch marker stitch. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut. So we are back. We've made our way all the way around until we have reached our stitch marker stitch. I did do a chain up of 1 and cut once when I worked into that stitch, and now what we're going to do from here is just single crochet along our armhole, then we'll be all done. So making sure that our work is still flipped right side out, we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam within the armhole. Then, just to talk you guys through it, into our underarm portion, 1 single crochet into every side row. Then working our way up and down the shoulder, 2 single crochet into every side row, making our way up, 2 single crochet into every side row, making our way down, then closing off the row with 1 single crochet into every underarm side row, then slip stitch into that chain space. When we have that completed, do a chain of 1 and cut, then repeat the single crochet row on the other side. Alright, so we have just single crocheted along both of our armholes and we are all done. Now the last thing we have to do is just weave in all of our ends. There you have it. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch y'all the next one. Bye!